So the state of New York's new concealed carry law, which defies the Supreme Court's recent ruling in Bruin, is now in big trouble. So let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think the state of New York needs to stop violating our rights to keep and bear arms, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. Also want to give a shout out to one of the main supporters of this channel, which is CCIA. Through your membership, you get training, education, and self-defense liability protection. So if you carry a firearm, I highly recommend you take a look into CCIA, and I'll put a link to them down in the details section. So like I said in the intro, the state of New York's new concealed carry law is now in big trouble because GOA has refiled their Antioch case after it was dismissed by the federal court judge in the prior case. So this is the second time they are filing this case. If you don't recall, GOA sued New York because of that new concealed carry law, which they passed in direct defiance of the Supreme Court's recent ruling in Bruin. In Bruin, the Supreme Court struck down the New York May issue licensing scheme, finding that it was inconsistent with this nation's history and tradition. One of the primary findings of that Bruin decision was that the government bears the burden to prove that their restrictions are based in the history and tradition of this nation dating back to 1791. But another important thing that the Supreme Court said in their opinion that bears directly on what New York is doing was in regards to sensitive places. The Supreme Court explained that states have extremely narrow latitude to limit the places where firearms may be carried in public, mentioning only sensitive places such as schools and government buildings. Justice Thomas, in the opinion, also expressly stated that the state of New York certainly could not just simply define sensitive places so broadly as to include all places that people typically congregate, or that the state of New York cannot simply say and declare that the entire island of Manhattan was a sensitive place. However, despite that decision, the state of New York rushed through a new law called the Concealed Carry Improvement Act, or the CCIA. Instead of rolling back their concealed carry laws, the state of New York doubled down on all of their gun control and created a concealed carry scheme that was even worse than the one that existed prior to Bruin. Now, if you're interested in a comprehensive breakdown of what the CCIA does, you can watch one of my prior videos, but just understand it creates a more restrictive application process to get a concealed carry permit, and then it makes it so that almost everywhere within the state of New York is a sensitive place, effectively making the permit useless even if you get one. Because of how this law directly violates the Second Amendment and what the Supreme Court said in Bruin, GOA, or Gun Owners of America, filed a lawsuit against the state of New York. In the original lawsuit, Antioch v. Bruin, that's the first one, GOA asked the district court for a preliminary injunction against the enforcement of that law. A preliminary injunction is an injunction that may be granted before a trial with the goal of preserving the status quo while the case is actually heard. So GOA's goal with the preliminary injunction was to simply stop the law from going into effect before September 1st. However, in response to that original lawsuit and the request for a preliminary injunction, Judge Sotheby, the federal court judge there in that original case, decided to dismiss the entire case based on what he believed was a lack of standing. And because he dismissed the entire case because of a lack of standing, the state of New York's new concealed carry law was allowed to go in effect on September 1st. In reaching his decision to sua sponte, which means on his own accord dismiss the case for a lack of standing, he stated, "Here plaintiff Antioch has alleged and or sworn that he desires, wants, and wishes, or would like after September 1st, 2022, to continue carrying a concealed handgun in all the places in which he currently carries it, which would violate the CCIA, but that he has not alleged or sworn, however, that he intends to do so." Judge Sotheby stated in that original decision that Antioch did not have to expressly state when and where he intended to violate the law, but that he had to indicate his intent to violate the law to have standing. And he said in that decision to dismiss the case that Antioch has not done that. So in dismissing the case, the judge said there is no standing because the plaintiff has not alleged that he intends to violate the law in the complaint. Judge Sotheby also found that there was no standing in regards to the institutional plaintiffs, GOA, and since he found that there was no standing for the individual plaintiffs and the institutional plaintiffs, he decided to dismiss the entire case, and as a result, also denied the request for a preliminary injunction against the enforcement of this new concealed carry law. However, in that same order in dismissing the case, he did run through an analysis stating that if he could rule on the merits of the case, on the merits of the preliminary injunction, he would find that the New York law does in fact violate the Second Amendment and does not adhere to what the Supreme Court said in Bruin. For example, he stated, "After carefully considering the matter, the court agrees with plaintiffs that the CCIA's definition of restricted locations impermissibly encompasses all private property in the state unless the property owner expressly permits the concealed carry of firearms. He also stated that the CCIA reads much less like a measured response than a wish list of exercise inhibiting restrictions, glued together by a severability clause in case some of the more fanciful restrictions were struck down. And because he agrees that the CCIA violates the Bruin decision, he said he would have granted the preliminary injunction in favor of the plaintiffs, but unfortunately he said he had to dismiss the case because he believed there was a lack of standing. Now, after the case was dismissed by Judge Sotheby, there were questions about what GOA would do strategically. What would they decide to do? They could appeal the decision up to the circuit court, or they could simply refile the case and try to fix all these standing issues, and then force this judge to rule on the merits of the preliminary injunction and on the merits of the entire case. Now, what GOA did decide to do is to simply refile this case. So Antioch v. Bruin 2, essentially is what I'm going to call it, was filed in regards to the New York concealed carry law. Then GOA requested that their new filed case be transferred to Judge Sotheby, since it is a related case and is essentially the same case that he just dismissed. And right now, the new Antioch case has been in fact transferred back to Judge Sotheby. So this related case, pretty much the same case with the fixing of the plaintiffs, has been refiled and resubmitted to the same judge. In the new complaint, GOA adds more individual plaintiffs in the hopes to resolve all those standing issues that the judge used prior to dismiss the original case. On top of refiling the case, GOA is already requesting for a temporary restraining order and also for a preliminary injunction to stop the enforcement of this new concealed carry law. And in response to those requests, the court here has already set a hearing and oral arguments on the request for a TRO, and that will happen this Thursday at 11 a.m. The court also set dates for the responses and replies to be filed in regards for the request for a preliminary injunction. A hearing will also be set probably soon, and the hearing for the preliminary injunction will likely happen sometime after October 20th because that's when all the papers are due, so it'll be sometime after that. So the hope is that now this judge, Judge Sotheby, will be required to grant the TRO and the preliminary injunction against the state of New York's new CCIA law. He already stated in the first case that the law in question is clearly unconstitutional and that if there was not standing issues, he would have granted the preliminary injunction in favor of the plaintiffs. Now with a new lawsuit, more plaintiffs, and all those efforts to resolve all those standing issues that he found prior, I would suspect that the judge will have no choice but to grant the request for a TRO and a preliminary injunction. Now, that's not a foregone conclusion. It could be simply that this judge will want to still punt this case or may still say that there is a lack of standing. So we will have to see how this plays out. But the refiling of this case with the updated plaintiffs to try to fix all those standing issues and the prior kind of dicta and opinion of the same judge on this issue saying that he would have granted the preliminary injunction really puts this New York concealed carry law in a major corner and really puts it at risk of being enjoined in some way. I suspect that there could be some sort of decision on the TRO either late Thursday or maybe sometime by close of business on Friday. I would suspect that maybe this judge will not sit on it very long, but you never know. So if we get any more information, I will definitely let you all know. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and like to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, and subscribe. All those things help to fuel the algorithm or fuel Al Gore's rhythm. It adds fuel to his jet and signals to YouTube that you guys see value in these videos and in this type of two-way news. Again, I want to thank everybody who likes, comments, subscribes, who hits the notification bell, who shares these videos. You guys are directly impacting these videos, impacting this channel, and helping me to reach and educate more people than I could ever do on my own. So again, thank you so much for all of your support. And as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.